Welcome to Innovation Pulse, your quick, no-nonsense update on the latest in clean tech and EVs. First, we will cover the latest news. Tesla teases a cyber SUV and smaller Cybertruck, Maryland tests EVs as power plants, and California boosts EV charging stations. After this, we'll dive deep into the strategic race for lunar dominance, as NASA plans to land a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2029. Tesla seems to be hinting at the development of two eagerly awaited vehicles, a cyber SUV and a smaller Cybertruck. Fans have long requested a true SUV and a compact Cybertruck, as Tesla lacks a full-sized SUV to rival models like the Chevrolet Tahoe. The Model Y hasn't quelled this demand. The smaller Cybertruck has been anticipated for years, particularly as a more practical option for international markets with narrow roads. Tesla's recent promotional material has fueled speculation, showing potential designs. Despite not adopting the Cybertruck's stainless steel exoskeleton for new models, Tesla may still draw inspiration from its design, using different materials. In an interview, Tesla's chief designer hinted at these developments, though he did not confirm them outright. A more compact Cybertruck could address regulatory concerns in Europe and Asia, where its current size is less suitable. The federal EV tax credit will soon end, prompting automakers to find new incentives for zero-emission vehicles. A pilot project in Maryland is testing a distributed power plant model, featuring 3 Ford F-150 Lightning trucks. Sunrun, in partnership with BGE, has launched this project to allow EV owners to sell stored electricity back to the grid. This model could offset EV costs and maintain sales momentum despite the tax credit's end. Unlike virtual power plants, which manage demand through software, distributed power plants use physical devices to generate electricity. This project shows the potential of EVs in stabilizing the grid and lowering energy costs. While the federal tax credit's future is uncertain, companies like Ford and GM are advancing EV plans with new technologies, aiming to sustain market growth. The landscape of EV sales in the US is poised for change. Join us as we discuss the growth of EV infrastructure. The California Energy Commission reports that California now has over 1,000 public and shared electric vehicle charging ports, marking a significant increase from 178,000 in March. Shared chargers are located at places like workplaces and multifamily residences for use by employees, tenants, and visitors. The total number of these ports is 68% more than gasoline nozzles statewide. Most public electric vehicle chargers are Level 2, numbering 182,548, compared to 18,632 fast chargers. Since Governor Newsom's 2020 order for all new cars to be zero-emission by 2035, California has heavily invested in expanding its electric vehicle infrastructure. This includes targeting low-income areas. The state offers grants and rebates for low-income residents to buy zero-emission vehicles. There are currently about 800,000 home chargers. Ongoing investments by companies like Rivian and Ford are expected to further boost infrastructure. And now, pivot our discussion towards the main clean tech topic. You know, when people talk about the new space race, they usually think about who gets to Mars first, or maybe commercial space tourism. But there's something happening right now that's far more consequential, and it's happening on the moon. NASA just got marching orders to land a nuclear reactor on the lunar surface by late 2029. And here's the thing, China and Russia are racing to do exactly the same thing. Let me tell you why this matters. The Apollo missions were incredible achievements, but they were essentially camping trips. We went. We planted flags. We came home. What we never did was stay. And the reason is simple: power. You can't build a permanent presence anywhere without reliable, continuous energy. Solar panels sound great until you realize the lunar night lasts 2 weeks. Batteries? Not even close to sufficient, but a nuclear reactor? That's a decade of consistent power, enough to run a small neighborhood worth of equipment and habitats. NASA wants a 100 kilowatt system up there. That doesn't sound like much. It's what a small Earth neighborhood uses. But in space, it's revolutionary. It means we could actually build permanent settlements, conduct serious scientific research, maybe even start mining operations or establish waypoints for Mars missions. This isn't just about doing what we've done before, but better. It's about fundamentally new possibilities. Now here's where it gets complicated. Building nuclear reactors on Earth is already incredibly challenging. Taking one to the moon? That's a whole different level of difficulty. Think about cooling for a moment. On Earth, we put reactors near water. The moon has no water, no atmosphere, so you need massive radiator panels to shed heat, which adds enormous weight to your payload. And weight is everything when you're trying to launch something into space. Then there's the launch itself. You need one of the heavy-lift rockets, SpaceX's Starship, Blue Origin's New Glenn, or ULA's vehicles could handle it. But NASA's timeline assumes the existence of a lunar lander that can deliver 15 metric tons to the surface. To put that in perspective, Firefly Aerospace landed about 1/10 of a metric ton on the moon earlier this year. We're talking about a vehicle that doesn't exist yet, carrying cargo we haven't built, on a deadline that's less than 5 years away. And let's talk about the safety concerns, because they're legitimate. What happens if the rocket explodes on the launch pad? Regulators need answers. The good news is that the reactor wouldn't be active during launch. It literally can't be turned on until it's safely on the lunar surface. Some designs use these coated uranium pebbles that stay intact, even in an accident. But still, you're putting nuclear material on top of millions of pounds of rocket fuel. The risk assessment has to be bulletproof. Once it's on the moon, though, the risks do diminish. There's no population to threaten, no environment to contaminate in the way we think about it on Earth. But here's where geopolitics enters the picture. What are the safety zones around a lunar reactor? 1/2 kilometer? 10 kilometers? And here's the real question. What happens when China plants their reactor near ours? Or vice versa? The Outer Space Treaty from 1967 gives us a framework, but it's vague on specifics. These are conversations that haven't really happened yet. There's also the business side. Companies won't invest in this without liability protection. On Earth, we have the Price-Anderson Act that limits liability for nuclear accidents. We need something similar for space, or private insurers simply won't cover these missions. And NASA is explicit about this. They're counting on private industry to design, build, and operate these reactors. This isn't a government-only project. But here's what really keeps me up at night: the strategic implications. NASA officials are worried that China or Russia could use their lunar presence to establish keep-out zones on the moon, limiting where the US can operate. Imagine a scenario where the best sites for lunar bases, places with ideal terrain, resources, or scientific value, are claimed first. Space law is fuzzy on property rights and exclusion zones. Whoever gets there first with permanent infrastructure might have a significant advantage. China is already developing a lunar base, and they're talking with Russia about powering it with nuclear energy, possibly by the mid-2030s. The US wants to be there first, by 2029. That's the real race. What we're witnessing is the beginning of permanent human infrastructure beyond Earth. Not just visiting, but staying, living, working. The country that cracks this first doesn't just get bragging rights. They potentially shape the entire framework for how humanity operates in space for decades to come. The technical challenges are immense, the regulatory questions are unanswered, and the geopolitical stakes couldn't be higher. 4 years might not seem like much time, but it might be enough to change everything about humanity's relationship with space. And it all starts with getting a reactor to the moon and turning it on. That's a wrap for today's podcast, where we explored Tesla's innovative ventures into a cyber SUV and smaller Cybertruck, and NASA's ambitious plans to land a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2029. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.